Hello, I today I'm going to be making a video about the conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan and how Afghanistan perceives it. Let's get started. Hello, I am a global nationalist. I support nationalism in my country, India, and in all countries around the globe. Today I'm going to be talking about nationalism in a country of South Asia. The country for today is Afghanistan. I want to talk about the conflict between Pakistan and Afghanistan, ruled by the Taliban, that has occurred in the year 2026 and that is ongoing. I want to discuss this conflict from the perspective of Afghanistan and how I think uh, this Afghanistan should react to this conflict. As I want to say that I'm not a military expert. I have no experience in military, and I do not want to advocate for war or any violence. But I am not a peacenik. I do not believe that peace is always the best option. I do believe that war is sometimes necessary. So when I give my opinions, I may favor war and favor peace, but that does not mean that I believe war is ever uh, good or positive in any way. I just think that it is a negative, in fact, but sometimes it is a necessary evil. And without further ado, let's get started. So, this started in 2026. An armed conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan began in late February 2026 following Pakistan airstrikes in Afghanistan's Nangarhar, Paktika, and coast provinces. This was described as retaliation for recent terrorist attacks in Islamabad, Bajaur, and Banu. Taliban officials said the attacks caused civilian casualties, and this is the background. The conflict occurred against the backdrop of long running tensions between Pakistan and the Taliban government of Afghanistan. On 19 October 2025, a Qatar mediated ceasefire was brokered after the deadliest cross border clashes in years, but it failed to produce a lasting agreement. On 11 February 2026, the Pakistani Defense Minister Khwaja Asif warned that Pakistan may take action against militants in Afghanistan if the Taliban fail to deter military activities from the territory under their control. In February 2026, Pakistan experienced multiple terror attacks on its territory. In the week from 29 January to 5 February, the Balochistan Liberation Army suicide bombing at the Shiite mosque in the capital of Islamabad, which killed 36 people, and an attack on a checkpoint in Bajaur, which killed 11 soldiers and a child. Another suicide attack followed in Banu on 21st February, after which it was reported that Pakistan's patience appeared to have run out. These are the initial airstrikes. Afghanistan reported airstrikes in parts of Nangarhar, Paktika, and coast provinces. Local sources report that the airstrikes in Nangarhar province's Bisud district struck a civilian homes, trapping 23 people beneath the rubble. Pakistan's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting stated that intelligence-based selective targeting of seven terrorist camps and hideouts occurred. The Taliban claimed that the targets included civilian homes and a religious seminary. I do not know who to believe because obviously each country's government, if you can call the Taliban a government, will give their own version of events and will produce their own propaganda. So, and but I do believe that there may be some truth overall. I do think that Pakistan in this attack would have uh, obviously targeted terrorist camps, but I think that they would have also caused civilian casualties. Both things can be true, I think. On 24th February, the hostilities resumed as both countries exchanged fire along their borders, while both sides blamed each other for provocations. And on 26th February, the Taliban led Afghanistan's officials announced the launch of what they described as retaliatory operation along the border in the provinces of Nangarhar, Nuristan, Kunal, Khost, Paktiya, and Paktika. As it per the Taliban officials, 55 Pakistani soldiers were killed and several others were captured. One military headquarters and 19 border outposts have been killed, while four border outposts were destroyed. This shows that this is the first time the Afghan Taliban officially have acted against Pakistan in this conflict. Earlier, it was only terrorist attacks by either the Taliban in Pakistan or the Balochistan Liberation Army or other terrorist groups that were happening in Pakistan. But it's the first time the Afghan Taliban officially have acted, as far as I know. I'm sure they've acted before, but I'm not aware of that. The PAF on 27th February, the PAF carried out airstrikes in parts of Paktika and Laghman provinces, according to local Afghan sources. On the same day, the Taliban-led Afghan Ministry of Defense announced that it had carried out airstrikes in Pakistan, targeting military sites in Faizabad, Nowshera, Jamrud, and Abbottabad. On 2nd of March, the PAF conducted airstrikes in Kabul, which were confirmed by Taliban officials. According to Afghan local sources, the PAF also carried out airstrikes in parts of Panjshir, Kapisa, and Nangarhar provinces. On the same day, Pakistani officials stated that since the start of hostilities, 435 Afghan Taliban fighters had been killed and more than 630 others had been injured. On 3rd March, the PAF conducted airstrikes in parts of Panjshir, Kabul, Dakshan, Herat, and Kapisa. Residents of Kabul reported the city had been subjected to daily airstrikes over the past 6 days. The Taliban-led government stated that in the past 24 hours, Taliban forces attacked Pakistan's border outposts on the provinces of Kandahar, Nagarhar, Kunar, Nuristan, Khost, Paktika, and Paktika. So we can see that Pakistan struck one, two, three, four, five provinces in Afghanistan, while the Taliban struck one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, two more in Pakistan. So Afghan is hitting back harder at Pakistan than they are getting hit. And the Taliban forces had killed more than 150 Pakistan troops, including 200 others. And when they said 28 Taliban fighters had been killed in the clashes, while 42 had been wounded. On 5th March, armed clashes were reported between Taliban forces and Pakistani border guards in parts of Khost, Paktika, Kunar, Nangarhar, and Kandahar provinces. And yeah, the Taliban-led Afghan Ministry of Defense said that over the past date, 41 Pakistani soldiers had been killed and 53 others had been wounded. Um, I want to talk about one recent incident. On 16th of March at around 9 a.m., in Kabul, Afghanistan, the Pakistan Air Force conducted a major airstrike that destroyed the Omid Addiction Treatment Hospital, which was holding nearly 3,000 people, of whom the majority were patients admitted for drug rehabilitation. According to Afghan authorities, at least 408 people were killed and another 265 people wounded. The United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, stated that at least 143 people had been killed and under 119 people had been wounded amidst an ongoing investigation. So, yeah, it's hard to know who is telling the truth, but it's possible. I would believe the United Nations this incident, but still, I think it could be probably in the middle, perhaps 200 people killed and 250 injured, but this does show there's a devastating attack and many innocent people died, which is very sad, especially in a hospital. And Afghanistan's Deputy Information Minister Zabihullah Mujahid stated that the Afghan government considers such an act to be against all accepted principles and a crime against humanity. Nasir Fake, Afghanistan's permanent representative to the United Nations, said that targeting hospitals and civilians was a clear violation of international law and may constitute a war crime. This is a significant instance, and Pakistan is in Afghanistan's Taliban is going to react hard against Pakistan. Now, I want to talk about why the Afghan government is going against Pakistan. It goes back to why the Taliban in Pakistan is going against Pakistan, even though Pakistan supported them during the war with the US. Although officially Pakistan was allied with the US and was supporting the US, it was a double game that Pakistan was playing. I don't mean to say this in a biased way because I'm Indian. I'm saying that because that is what the historical mainstream history says about that period. The TTP's most contentious demands include reinstatement of the semi-autonomous status of FATA, which is a region, a tribal region, which is which is often has control over it by the TTP. And however, during the negotiations, Afghan Taliban's role was a reluctant facilitator in the talks, which emboldened the TTP to take a firm position. Afghan Taliban's reluctance is due to a desire to reduce its reliance on Pakistan. Pakistan's relationship with Afghan Taliban has always been fraught with challenges. Afghan Taliban wants to foster relationships with neighboring states like India and China. So this is why the Afghan Taliban is not trying to force the Pakistan Taliban to accept Pakistan's government's demands. First, historical ties between the two groups and shared histories. The TTP has a robust support amongst loyalists within the various ranks of the Afghan Taliban. Second, other domestic challenges such as dealing with the threats of internal resistance and violence perpetrated by ISK have contributed to the Afghan Taliban's reluctance. Closing remarks. We can see that the Afghan government is not trusting the Pakistan government, or at least the Afghan now called Taliban government, but administration because it is not officially recognized by the rest of the world, including India. India works with them but doesn't officially recognize the Taliban government as the official government of Afghanistan. Anyway, so the Afghan Taliban just doesn't trust the Pakistan, and they don't want to be used by Pakistan's government against India. They want a relationship with India that is based on their own interests, which I think is their correct way for them to go about this. However, I do think that the Afghan Taliban, they don't want to force the Taliban in Pakistan to surrender to the Pakistan government. They should at least try to negotiate a settlement between them and encourage the Pakistan Taliban to become peaceful and to work in the Pakistan democracy. It will be best for them and best for Afghanistan. It'll help bring peace between both countries. However, if they believe that the Pakistan government is somehow against the Pashtun people, is discriminating against the people, then I can understand that they might work with the Pakistan Taliban to fight the Pakistan government. In that case, I think that it should not just be supporting them indirectly and with suicide bombings and stuff, but rather just actual war against Pakistan army, not targeting civilians. And they should try to take over territory from Pakistan to cross the Durand line to collect Pashtun community within Afghanistan. That will settle the dispute militarily. And although it must be said that not all Pashtuns in Pakistan are supportive of the Afghan Taliban, many of them are patriotic. I have spoken about this in a previous video about Afghanistan and Pakistan's relationship. You can see a link to that video here. And I don't really have much else to say except that I hope that Afghanistan can protect its national interests in this conflict and can bring peace between both countries. That's all I wanted to say.